Hello. In this video, I want to talk about construction using dots. So, it's a very simple example, but usually when I practice every day, I start off by drawing two dots and trying to connect a line between them. And when I do this, it's a good way to kind of warm up, even though I kind of missed it here. The whole point of this, the whole point of it is to eventually get to the point when you hit all of the dots and you pretty much hide them. So it's kind of like a method in which you use dots in construction to hide them for whatever you may need them to do. There are many methods in drawing construction, and some of them tend to focus on understanding certain shapes, trying to encapsulate them. I've talked about it in various videos that I've made. And time and time again, a lot of those, if you were to say to use them in like an underdrawing, and if you're working with like traditional tools, it can be difficult because either you're going to have to use tracing paper in some way to do it again, or you're going to have to do a really good job at covering up that lot of extra construction. And it makes things a bit of a challenge, because when you have to deal with that, it's it becomes a mess. One of my challenging experiences, and before I say one more time, I'm going to try to stop saying so much. So all of that additional construction tends to add a lot of stress. I actually had a video on it before. I called it dealing with line debt. And the whole crux of that video was talking about how the more lines you tend to add to a page, the more stress it ends up bringing. And not stress in a bad way, just, and I said again, things you have to, and I did it there again, that you need to deal with. And when you're drawing, you want to limit the amount of complexity. You want to make things easy to understand for whatever it is that you were trying to draw. So this method that I wanted to show you, you pretty much just draw dots. And it's not too bad, but like the thing that's a bit confusing is what happens when you get to something that's not a straight line. Say a flower. I took this flower in Florida a while ago, and when you're dealing with construction, I think everything is very unique, because sometimes people may look at this and you could think of it like, oh look, there's a cylinder here that kind of connects like that. And I think that is a good way to go about that. But I feel like there are other ways to tackle it, because you have to ask yourself, is this really the most important thing? Because I think, yeah, it's great that you could see the cylinder here, and it's great that you can connect it. But I think sort of the problem is that's not going to be too important. Like, more often than not, I feel like the main important things here, oh, yeah, I think that tube shape is important too, but you have to, if you think of like the leaves, you have these lines that you can draw, and you could try to draw behind in 3D space. That's why I kind of curved it around, because this petal right here is kind of receding in 3D space a bit. So we have like these things here, kind of curves around. Oh, I should have done it more like that. Kind of curves around like that. And I guess a lot of this is up to you. But we have these petals here, and we have one over here too that kind of goes down. And I think lines like this, yeah, I know, I just didn't use dots, but please hear me out. The reason why I drew these lines is because I wanted to think of a boundary area where I can encapsulate the entirety of the flower. So we have that, and I'm going to do another layer. And I wanted to draw an ellipse. That kind of helps encapsulate the end of the leaves. Okay, so we have that. It's not the best. But, well, you know what? Maybe I can take away. So we have something about like that. And I think a good way to think of it is, yes, you can draw that ellipse to try to encapsulate the entirety of the leaf to work within the bounds of it, because that's what I was actually trying to get at here. And I'm not doing a good job at it because it's a bit of a weird shape. Sometimes you really have to practice before you draw, aka ghosting, before you draw the encapsulating ellipse. Dealing with digital is easier because I can just put it on a new layer, but say I didn't have those lines from before and I was having to confront it this way. I want to encapsulate, I'll do it slow. I wanted to encapsulate like everything. And when you draw an ellipse like that, it's a bit ugly. But if you could think of it in terms of dots or even like endpoints, i.e. the construction using dots, I think it could be a bit more easy to deal with. Like I'm putting a couple dots like where I want the furthest point of each petal to go. Because then if I have that, I have a bit of a better estimate to work with, and I also don't have to deal with that whole ugliness of the ellipse from before. So I guess more than anything, this is just another tool to deal with. And I also kind of realized I should have been thinking, when I put those dots in, I should have been thinking how to deal with it better. Like I feel like I really should have been looking for where the end curve is. So there's going to be like one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, probably about there. Sometimes there is a little bit of estimation you have to do, but when you have that, we have these dots here, and I think if you were to say, if you wanted to draw those lines, or if you didn't want to, if you instead wanted to plot those points, you could then go around the leaf if you wanted to do like an outline of the individual petals. I didn't mean to say leaf, I meant petals. But if you do that, you could work with it and go, and as you do that, you end up drawing through the dots. So basically what ends up happening is you end up hiding the constructional dots, which is kind of what we wanted to deal with. Like I think being able to deal with construction and also being able to work with it further, I think is an incredibly important thing. I'm not saying you have to do it, but I think one of the really annoying things about construction is the fact that a lot of it ends up getting in the way of a drawing you may want to take further or learn about further. And perhaps doing it this way, you could end up avoiding a lot of line debt. Now, I know I'm not doing it perfectly. I think a lot of this also depends on how thick you draw the dot. Like I just drew a dot here and I did it really lightly. Or you could do it real thick. But if you do it real lightly, I think it's a lot easier to try to cover up when you're drawing more thoughtful lines. But I hope this construction method using dots kind of helps. I've been thinking about it for a while, kind of thinking how it could really help more, especially for people who are using traditional more. I've been drawing traditional recently more for the pleasure in trying to gain more skill. And I found that certain things I could kind of share with you because I think it can help, even though you may not want, even though you may even be a digital artist, but I think it can help you in one way or another. So yeah, I thought I would share it. Now I think, I talked about this, but I think you could work it for all types of shapes. Originally, when I learned to draw boxes, I learned to draw them by initially plotting them out as like a series of like a Y shape, and I can't draw the Y shape for some reason, but it's over here. And eventually, as you go further, I'm going to do this really ugly because I don't want to spend a lot of time. But yeah, have the initial Y shape. You go further and all that, and this is really ugly, and I would spend more time planning it. But eventually, you have a box. Just real quick. But it's just like I found it to be a bit confusing because I'm thinking of everything in terms of dots, not in the terms of it being a 3D object. So I feel like if you are going to try to do this method using dots, I think you want to have a little bit of experience going the way of drawing the extra lines and drawing the extra construction. Because I think a lot of the whole point of doing the construction, like thinking how like, oh look, there's a cylinder shape in here, and I can connect it, and it kind of curves out a bit, and all that other stuff. I think a lot of that is more of a good teaching tool, and I think when you eventually over time, after you do a lot of it, you eventually internalize a lot of it, and you could see it, and you can draw it if you think you need to, and if you think you need to do it as a study. But I think by knowing the dot method, you can know when to use different tools and take shortcuts when it's appropriate. I don't mean to say this is a shortcut for not doing any type of further construction, but I feel like to a big extent it can help you. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful. If you have a question, please ask in the comments. If you like the video, please like it. And if you like my channel, please subscribe. Thank you very much for listening to me. Bye.